Recently, we saw millions of women marching in various cities around the world after the election of Donald Trump and his inauguration. We have seen sort of a talk about rolling back women's access to contraception in the U.S., women's access to family planning, clinics worldwide that take U.S. aid money that will no longer be able to give advice on abortion, access to family planning, et cetera. Are you worried at all that we're in a climate right now where these type of initiatives, this type of work, could be threatened not just by your work, but by other foundations, other advocacy groups, other initiatives that are doing similar work?
Well, I'm personally concerned about the Mexico City policy that's put back on, and particularly we'll see what happens of it, but I believe in universal access. I'm very open about that, universal access to contraceptives. But potentially the way this policy is being talked about this time, which we've never had before in the history of the United States, the way they're talking about potentially implementing, where it would actually affect clinics that also give out HIV/AIDS drugs, tuberculosis drugs, malaria drugs. Look, we have the U.S. gives to something called the Global Fund, which is for AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria. 20 million people are alive because of that fund. So when I go out around the developing world and I visit these very small clinics that the US and the UK and France and Germany have all helped set up, and to think about they won't be there in a community anymore, that a person won't be able to go get their HIV/AIDS drugs. We believe in giving people in the United States HIV/AIDS drug, but because of the way we're going to implement a policy, all of a sudden the whole clinic's going to be shut down. Wow, that doesn't sound to me like the American people we are and the value we have for life. We've chosen as a country to give money to this fund, but now we might put all of that work at risk. That just doesn't make sense to me. And when I think about our values as Americans, when I think about what we care about or the dignity of life, we care about that, but we also care about peace and security. And if we want peace and security in the United States, making these investments in the developing world is what allows people to stay where they are, right? They want a better life in their own community. So there's also a peace and security aspect to it, to me, that makes absolutely no sense in that.
There's been a backlash against kind of international investment, international aid in some quarters, not just the U.S. and the U.K. as well. You just describe it as fundamental to what we believe as Americans as values. Do you think they understand that when you say that the trade-off for this type of policy is literally not giving people access to life-saving drugs? What could be done to make that advocacy more clear? Will you be even more front and public about this?
Well, I think you're going to hear Bill and I, and through the annual letter, we're trying to speak the truth about what we see, through all the work we do all year long, and we've done for over 15 years now, all the changes in the developing world. And no, in the U.S., less than 1% of Americans know that poverty's been cut in half in the last 25 years. So it's something we're trying to get the messages out about so that people understand that these investments that we make, that we ask our government to make, are making a profound difference in the developing world. And, I would say to people, if you care about these issues, if you care about peace and security in the world, call your senator and say, I care about these foreign aid dollars continuing to be spent in the same way they have been in the past.